For those that don't know, Season of Discovery's newest phase, Phase 7, is about to be released, and there is a special dungeon coming out in this new phase, something that many of us are going to hold very near and dear to our hearts, and I'm about to explain why. Of course, I am talking about the Karazhan Crypts. That is right, everybody. At long last, we are going to finally be able to descend down into the Karazhan Crypts in Season of Discovery. Now, this is a dungeon, or well, area of World of Warcraft that has a lot of lore behind it, or rather a lot of folklore behind it, not actual lore. And that's why the Karazhan Crypts are so special to the player base. You see, this little crypt next to Karazhan has never actually been accessible before. It's never been a dungeon in the game or even an area that you normally can access. And yet, if you were to get behind the bars and you were to get into this area in the game, what you would find is this big, sprawling labyrinth of something that Blizzard intended, yet never saw the light of day in the game, at least until now. And that's why there's like a lot of folklore behind Karazhan Crypts, because ever since like OG Vanilla WoW, like 2004, 2005 World of Warcraft, there's been a lot of talk as to what exactly this place is, and is this a place that was actually accessible in the game? It's just nobody knew how to access it. Down in this dungeon, or crypt, whatever, you would find a lot of things that made the game kind of go from a rated T for teen game to maybe bordering on rated M. I'm sure that you guys have seen the screenshots of all like the tombs that you go through while in the crypts, the piles of bones, and then of course the pool of upside down sinners, which is probably the most well-known location in the Karazhan Crypts. This is a body of water that is filled with corpses attached to chains that are attempting to float up to the surface because they're so bloated, and yet they can't. They're held down by the chains. Look, ever since all this crap was discovered, it was sort of like assumed one of two things. The first is that this is just a sick and twisted area where the original Blizzard devs just kind of put into the game their most sick and twisted ideas that they knew was never going to see the light of day, so they just kind of like went crazy with making this place look as creepy as possible. But then there is the folklore side of things. There is the mystery, I guess you could say. And the most common suggestion that I remember from all those years ago that was being put forward as an explanation for the Karazhan Crypts is that this dungeon was in some way connected to the Ashbringer. Back in the day, there was a legendary item within the game's game files that was called the Ashbringer, the same sword that you guys might remember from Wrath of the Lich King that Tyrion Fordring wielded and stuff. Anyway, this item was in the data files. This item was an actual item that you could equip in the game. It had its own model, you could run around with it, but the problem is nobody knew how to get it. It was just this mystery legendary that was just hidden somewhere in Azeroth. And yet, if you went through the game, there were all these clues that alluded to maybe like how you could get it. One of the items that you could get in the game was actually Nat Pagel's Guide to Extreme Angling. And in this book, it sort of alluded in some manner that maybe Nat Pagel knew the location of the Ashbringer, and yet nobody knew how to get these NPCs to reveal the information. There was also some references in the lore of the game that the Ashbringer was apparently lost at the bridge that connects the eastern and western plague lands. This was the last known location of it. But without going into all the details, there was a player-led hunt for this legendary item for quite a long time in World of Warcraft until Wrath of the Lich King. Players looked forever for this sword, even creating fan-made websites in order to potentially find the Ashbringer. And one location that people felt was connected to the Ashbringer in some way was Karazhan Crypts. You have this massive sprawling dungeon that obviously Blizzard put a lot of time and effort into, and like, why would they do that unless like this was a part of something? Like this seemingly inaccessible area was maybe a part of a secret quest line. And because the place is so dark and grim and kind of scary, it's sort of like you kind of created a connection with the Ashbringer. Like, oh, you've got this blade of pure holy light and stuff, and then in some way you have to descend down into the Karazhan Crypts, which is like the opposite, you know, this place of darkness and evil, and maybe it's here that you find the Ashbringer, or maybe it's here that you purify the Ashbringer or something. there was a lot of speculation, okay? And you better believe that after the Naxxramas patch came out and the corrupted Ashbringer was now a lootable item, that players were going to even greater lengths to figure out, okay, how do we take this thing and purify it and make it back into the original Ashbringer? Like the speculation around the Ashbringer and Karazhan Crypts, it was just reaching a boil. And then, of course, Burning Crusade came out and players were left disappointed. The legendary Ashbringer was never discovered. But I think that maybe you're kind of starting to understand here that there was a lot of mystery around the Karazhan Crypts back in the day. And even today, I mean, if you go on YouTube and you type in like scariest places in Azeroth, you will see every YouTuber and their mom making like a list or a countdown video talking about the Karazhan Crypts at some point. Usually it's the #1 place because of how messed up this area is in terms of Blizzard's wicked game design. It was a place that we were never meant to go to. Now we can, and it's coming in Phase 7 of Season of Discovery. Now, this is also the same phase that Naxxramas is, coming out on. And, you're going to be able to loot that corrupted Ashbringer. And maybe Blizzard is maybe going back to those like ye old yonder days when people were like, Ashbringer, Karazhan Crypts, like inaccessible weapon, inaccessible zone, like they must have something to do with each other. Maybe Blizzard is going to capitalize on that a little bit. Maybe Blizzard is going to, you get the corrupted Ashbringer from the Naxxramas raid, you go to the Scarlet Monastery, you see that cool event and whatnot, and then maybe in some way, you end up in the we don't know. Like, honestly, it's open to even more speculation now, but I think it would be really cool if Blizzard made the original OG legendary Ashbringer sword an obtainable item in Season of Discovery. All that time ago, when Blizzard announced Season of Discovery, like when they first were talking about it, and they were like, hey, we're gonna do this like sort of Classic Plus experience. All that time ago, I was making videos and talking on Twitch and stuff about how Blizzard needs to bring the Ashbringer into Classic WoW. If they're gonna do this, make a way for players to finally get the Ashbringer, because I think that would just be such a cool thing to do, in my opinion. Like, this legendary item that has haunted the imaginations of WoW players ever since 2004, finally making it like properly attainable would be incredible. I think so. And maybe Karazhan Crypts in this new phase is going to have something to do with that, but I don't know. But yeah, this was a video of me just, sharing information that this new dungeon's coming out. I'm very hyped to see it and to play through it, but also to talk a little bit about WoW's history, a little bit of like old WoW folklore and, what was going on in the WoW culture all those years ago for those of you guys that weren't there like I was. And I think that now maybe you can see why, for some of us at least, we've been waiting for 20 years to get down into these Karazhan Crypts and to see, what was maybe some of Blizzard's ideas of what they were going to do down here. Maybe some of those original ideas from the original game's development has made its way into Phase 7. But I guess we're going to find out. Guys, thank you for watching the video, and if you are bored as shit of World of Warcraft and you want to check out another MMO, I did just make a video recently talking about all the reasons why I think you should give Lord of the Rings Online a chance in 2025. It is linked on your screen right now. Big shout out to the channel members. Big shout out to those of you guys that purchased the new Paladin shirt off the Naxxramas store. And thanks for watching.